In this worksheet called Wrap Text, it looks as if some of the columns are unnecessarily wide. For example, columns A, E, and F. And we can adjust columns all at once by clicking in the upper left-hand corner, double-clicking a column boundary. That does readjust the column widths, but they're still unnecessarily wide. And so what we might want to consider is an option called Wrap Text. And let's say we apply this all the way across the top here. Wrap Text. What happens? Seemingly nothing. If we were to make column F a bit narrower, though, something starts to happen. Not exactly obvious what is happening here. If we make row 1 taller, and we can simply double-click the boundary between rows 1 and 2, we see what's happening here. Now, where that did the break might not be to your liking. The Wrap Text feature is reasonably fast, and it does achieve its objectives, but not necessarily in the way that you want them to be. If I make column A a bit narrower this way, you see what's happening there. So making it narrower a bit more and a bit more simply by dragging, it might actually wrap this way. What if we double-click the boundary because we might have some long names farther down the list? It might do this. In other words, it might do the wrapping not to our liking. So what I'm going to do here is press Ctrl-Z a few times and go back to our initial layout this way and show another way to do this. And you might be doing this as you're typing the entry itself. For example, I'm going to double-click in cell A1 right behind the double E there, and then press Alt-Enter. That introduces a line break. I'll delete the leading character right there, and then Enter. If we double-click now, and presumably there's some longer names that we're not seeing in the list, but it gets the job done. And by pressing Alt-Enter, we've controlled where the break occurs. We could do something similar in cell E1. I'll double-click right by the 14 there, press Alt-Enter, and then delete and Enter. And we can make column E narrower too. And in this cell here, in cell F1, we might even want to press Alt-Enter twice because maybe, since these entries are so narrow, we might want to stack these up 2014 on top of tax on top of rate. So again, double-clicking near the 14, press Alt-Enter, get rid of the leading space in front of tax, click after the X, press Alt-Enter, get rid of the leading space in front of rate. Then we can complete the entry with Enter, double-click the boundary here, and we've got that appearance. And although not critical, we could also select all these and then, using vertical alignment, put these in the top of the cell, or possibly in the middle, or in the bottom. But by using the Alt-Enter approach, in other words, we're typing an entry or editing it and pressing Alt-Enter, we control the exact spot where we want the wrap to occur. The Wrap Text feature itself sometimes puts that break at the wrong point. Now, another option here could have been, and particularly I'm thinking of cell A1 here, what if I go back in here, double-click, space, delete? In other words, I'm unwrapping this manually. I could do it this way. Delete there as well. And then make the column wider. Let me press Enter first, make it wider. There we go, put that N back in there. We'll see what's happening. It's still doing the wrap text, so what we can do is uncheck that box, does this. Another option is to shrink the text. I'm not a big fan of this, and you'll see why in a second. But the way we get here is by way of Format Cells. We could certainly do it by way of right-click or Control-1. If it's right-click, we go to Format Cells. And on the Alignment tab, we'll choose Shrink to Fit. Shrink to Fit. Click OK. For the moment, it does nothing, but if we make the column narrower, you see what happens. Now, I think you can see at some point that's going to be too narrow, but you're going to be the judge. So what's the size of this font? Within the font group on the Home tab, it says 11. What if I make it be 10? What if I make it be 16? What's happening? Nothing. Let's do a couple of undos there. That's the part of Shrink to Fit I'm not wild about. It does shrink the text. We don't know what that font actually is. But as long as that feature's in place, no matter how narrow we make the column, it's going to fit no matter what. I think it does have an occasional good use, but do recognize its existence. If you suddenly encountered this, I think it'd be very confusing because you click in the cell to its right, it says the font is size 11. It says this is size 11 as well. So if we right-click and go into Format Cells, we'll see that the feature called Shrink to Fit is still active. Uncheck it, click OK, and we're back to the normal display. So different ways to control the way text is displayed. I think wrap text is by far the dominant feature of the two that we saw here, but recognize also that shrink to fit also has a role to play.